All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, of the London is Blue podcast. As I say always, hopefully your favorite Chelsea podcast. Dan, one of your hosts here. No Nick or Brandon, because it is another match preview. And look, we may have gotten a little bit wrong in the last match preview. We thought Chelsea would be ripping and roaring to get up to Manchester, to get into Old Trafford, to try to get a result against Ten Hag, and it didn't come to fruition. But I guess, Sam, when we look at it and we think about it, we did highlight the strengths of United pretty well. We just didn't get the end result or that we hoped or projected that we might get, nor that one that we would want as Chelsea supporters.
Most people sort of remembered to see the post that I put out. It was actually, here's why United are in a pattern of form, and here's why we're going to lose 1-0. And it actually came true. So I was doing my best to jinx it, but unfortunately it didn't happen. And yeah, credit to them. They played well, but it's, I don't even know how to tactically analyze that performance, to be honest. It just looked as if we had run out of gas. I think if you have the data to back that up, it's easier to say that this is the distance running stats and this is the high intensity distance running stats and this is how it's dropped over the past couple of games. But to me, it just looked like fatigue. We just weren't there. And if multiple players can't compete for duels and give you a certain amount of tenacity, which we've been known for this season, then yeah, something's gone wrong. So I think on the day we rocked up with less amount of intensity, less capacity to compete, and got punished for it. And hopefully, that's something we can avoid against a team who I expect to follow a blueprint that is quite similar, which is concerning for us. But hopefully, we've learned our lessons and we can redeem ourselves on the pitch.
Yeah, usually you only need to touch the stove once to learn that it is hot and not repeat the same mistake. And we'll see if Pochettino and team get that done against Everton in the weekend. We are recording this before Everton and United, that's Newcastle United, play on the day. So we don't have the exact bit of information going on with if they have some players potentially who are going to be out. So there might be a little bit of lag in information there. But we've done our best to put together a comprehensive preview about what's going right for Everton. Look, a lot's going wrong for them outside of the football pitch, but what's going right for them on the pitch when they do play? What are the weaknesses that they have? Again, this is Sean Dyche's Everton. Just remember that. So we're going to go through what are the weaknesses of a side like that. We'll talk about what Pochettino has to solve for and how the team need to respond after the result at Old Trafford and make some projections, which hopefully will be better than the ones that we put out for the Manchester United match. But before we get into all that, Sam, we just want to always say thank you to the people for supporting the podcast. We love the Spotify Wraps, so please continue sharing those. Leave 5-star reviews on Spotify. I just checked the other day. Over 2,500 reviews, 4.9 rating on Spotify. That's phenomenal. Also, a wonderful 4.9 rating on Apple Podcasts as well. So if you can leave a review, if you can leave a 5-star as well, we appreciate it. Go into YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to get notified, like the videos, make a comment. We read those. Don't reply to all of them because sometimes they're really mean, but we at least read them, so we see you. You can also sign up to our wonderful newsletter that Sam writes, the London is Blue Dispatch. That's free to get. And then you also can join our wonderful Discord community. Links to everything are in the description. Great way to get involved in the conversation and have a little bit of group therapy when Chelsea aren't playing too well. But that's all of the admin out of the way. And as we take a look at this Everton side, who have a record of 5-7, technically 17 points, but because of the points deduction that they have received and have appealed, they are not far up the table. In fact, when you look at the league table, you have to scroll all the way to 18th place to see Everton on 7 points. That's right, the same number as Burnley, only 2 more than Sheffield United, and 2 less than Luton at the moment in the relegation zone. So a massive implication for the 10-point hit that they have received, even though their record is better than those that they're sitting around. Now, that home record is 1-1-5 with 4 points. The away record actually has been where Everton have been extremely successful. 4-1-2 at 13 points in total. They've had 15 goals, 1.07 per game. 20 goals scored against. It's a difference of -5. XG of 20.9. XGA 18.7. It's a difference of 2.2. And Sam, as we look at some of the results, they did beat Forest 1-0, but we also saw Forest get battered by Fulham 5-0. So maybe not the best endorsement. They also got beat by Man United. They got beat 3-0. They did beat Everton, or they did beat Crystal Palace in a 3-2 match that was quite enjoyable. And they did draw against Brighton 1-1. So just a quick summary. You know, we like to do our 3-word match reviews. Is there a 3-word summary that you could provide of this Everton side?
For this, oh, I thought you were going to tell me about the United side, and I was just lost for words. I think that would have been a nice 3-word thing for me. But yeah, Everton, I would say, is just. I mean, I'm probably going to do more than 3 words. It's difficult to do it. Maybe at the end of the episode, I'll think of something witty. But now that you've put me on the spot, I'm like a little bit struggling for something nice. But I would say it's just a very intense side. It's definitely a Sean Dyche side, something that he's known for over the time he's been in the Premier League. Just ruthlessly efficient, very pragmatic. If you think something's risky, don't do it. I think that's the best way to define their ideology, their philosophy. But if I were to just give you a numerical gist of how they function, I think I pulled out a couple of numbers to give you a nice illustration of it. So 18th for average possession in the league with 40.7%. They have the least amount of touches in the defensive third this season. They're also 19th for progressive carries, so no dribbly boys taking the ball 10 yards plus into places. Nope, not going to work here. And out of players who've attempted the most long passes in the league, Jordan Pickford is second behind Luton's goalkeeper. He's also got the second most launched passes attempted, and 55% of the passes he gets or he makes are launched, basically just ballooned over everybody else. And Pickford also launches around 70% of his goal kicks. So this is a side that is not going to try and attempt to play it out under pressure. They're not going to be focusing on build up patterns and how they're going to escape your press. None of that. Sometimes sparingly against select sides in select situations, but most of the times it's going to be go long, and we'll see what we can do away from our danger zone. And I think that's been their philosophy throughout. It's been consistent. Now, out of outfielders, Tarkowski is 14th and Ashley Young is 16th for long passes made. So there are basically 3 guys at the top 20, respectively, of players who look for long passes in terms of attempting it constantly. And interestingly, I think this is the most Everton stat ever. Whenever they've had more than 50% of the ball this season, they've lost. So this happened 3 times, and all 3 times they went on to lose. So just a side that doesn't know what to do with the ball, I think they're just focusing what to do without it. And I think that can be a double-edged sword. So something that we should try to focus on and hopefully look to exploit. So that's basically the numerical part of it. In terms of the style of play, I would say that it's also been very consistent, unsurprisingly. So they usually go for a 4-5-1 or a 4-4-1-1, and it's just built on strength, power, and industry. You wanted your 3 words? There they are. Strength, power, and industry. I think those 3 words define them very well. The emphasis is on, like I mentioned, no nonsense, direct football. And the gist of the play is basically focusing on winning second balls and taking the quickest route you can to goal. I think what's impressed me very, very much about any Sean Dyche side, and particularly Everton, is how well they focus on this, on just basically making the best of recoveries, the best of second ball situations. It's something that Pep Guardiola highlighted when he came to the Premier League for the first time, saying he was surprised by how difficult it is to manage second balls in the Premier League. And this is something that Dyche masters. He's basically, I think, got this uncanny ability with his analysis staff to figure out where the loose ball is going to drop. And players tend to position themselves there. And it does not sort of, take away from the fact that they've also got players suited to those strengths. If you look at their midfield composition, if you see their defenders, extremely well suited to winning loose balls, any second balls that drop out of the sky, and basically recycling it as quick as possible. So that's something that they will keep trying to do. Up front of that 4-5-1 or a 4-4-1-1 is a classic target man. You have Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's more than a target man, to be fair, but obviously with injury worries, he's struggled a little to be consistent with goals and be the kind of player that we thought he was going to be a couple of seasons ago when he broke out. And they've got Beto this season, who was pretty good in the Serie A, and he's come in to provide a little bit of reinforcement after Richarlison left. So they've got these two guys who will essentially try to win every single long ball that Pickford throws at them, and will try to push our defenders back into the box and essentially try to create space between our defense line and our midfield line. And that's where Everton come alive. They're going to try and use this long ball tactic to try and win the ball there between the two lines and then try and basically attack you from there, usually in the middle third or in the attacking third. And yeah, this is basically the number one attacking tactic. Now, in the 4-4-1-1, the attacking midfielder, the guy behind Calvert-Lewin or Beto, which is usually Abdoulaye Doucouré, he has a more adventurous role. He's a more liberal role, I would say. Has to facilitate transitions. So you will often see him on counterattacks, moving towards wherever the ball is breaking out. So if the ball is breaking towards the left, he will try to provide a passing option inside or wherever the space is to try and connect the defense to attack. He's also got other roles, like he will try to open passing lanes to runners up front. So a lot of off-ball duties that Ducore is very, very good at doing, even though he's now hitting plus 30, but he's got this great ability to shunt back and forth and to offer everything between those two boxes as the box-to-box midfielder. So it's an AM role, but it's being played by a box-to-box midfielder who can score goals. He's the second highest goal scorer in the Premier League. And basically from there, you've got in that.
Isn't he their highest goal scorer on 4? Because
Oh, he is.
Calvert Lewin has
He
3.
is. He has three. You're right. Absolutely right. Oh, apologies. Yeah, I got confused because I was talking and praising Calvert-Lewin, and I was like, yeah, should be second, but he is first. So yeah, he is the top scorer
That
from
is one thing
behind.
that shocked me, because I was not anticipating that. Even though we know that they have not scored a ton of goals, again, 15 kind of a total across the entirety of the matches that they've played. The fact that Doucouré in this modified role has been, I would say, the engine, I guess is how I would describe him, and
Hmm.
also the leading scorer. I don't know. I mean, great for him, great for Everton.
Yeah, he's the scope on top of your sniper rifle. To be honest, he's somebody who's basically in a role where there is less emphasis. I would say, at least in a 4-4-1-1, there's less emphasis on being, a little more disciplined even when you're attacking. It's like that Neil Warnock meme saying, "Have fun, but have fun by being disciplined here." And then it's exactly what Sean Dyche also emphasizes, saying that you have to absolutely respect the structure first, because that is how we do things. You don't concede any risk or any danger that you can't control. So when you're pushing Decore up from a number 8 or a box to box midfield position to where he is now, he can go up front and link up with the attacker. So often you will see him out of possession. Instead of being in the midfield line, he will actually push up next to Calvert Lewin and press, because he's good at that, because he gives you industry, he gives you a lot of running power. So he does that. He closes down people and he does it well. And then he basically tries to get the ball into the middle third, where Everton have very good, strong central midfielders who will try to win the ball back and give you trouble. But if you look at the other formation, then he shifts into a three-man midfield, which I think is what is going to happen when we play them. The other iteration of his formation is a 4-5-1. It's basically the same philosophy, the same principles, but the emphasis here is not to be next to Calvert Lewin, not to be more proactive, not to be more liberal, but to be more disciplined, to fall back into the midfield line to prevent any kind of passes coming through the center. This is something we talked about when we talked about Newcastle. Eddie Howe does this fantastically well with Newcastle. So there will be any kind of blocking happening in that middle lane with like three central midfielders. And obviously, if you're up against a 4-5-1-1, if you try to play the ball wide, then you're also getting up against a fullback and you're getting the wide midfielder. So it's essentially very difficult to go through the center or go through the sides against a 4-5-1. And you have to make sure that whatever damage you try to do is before the retreat into that block. And I think that's going to be the focus of our strategy, to try and figure how we can attack quickly before they basically get into that structure. So that happens once they get into a low block, they become even tougher because then they push one of their central midfielders back into the back line. So right now they're playing Idrissa Gueye. They've also got Amadou Onana, but he's been injured, so he's not been playing a lot. And they played James Garner, who I think they got from Manchester United. So he's one who's been the third midfielder, but they are desperately missing Amadou Onana, who, when he drops back into the back line, becomes a force of nature. So it's 5-3-2 then, and again, very tough to then attack them in the box, especially with our lack of aerial threat. I think that's going to be very, very tough to breach.
Well, that's a good rundown of their style of play and maybe some projections on how we can expect this Dyche side. I would say that, if it's three words, Everton's Diceification complete, because they have fully bought into the man's ideals. But yours was good as well too, Sam. But we're going to take a real quick break. And when we get back, we'll talk about some more of the strengths that they have been able to exemplify on the pitch, and then also some of the weaknesses as well. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
What is going on, Chelsea fans? Exciting announcement. We have joined up with Team Manscaped again for this holiday season. That's right. We are back with Manscaped. I know how much you loved their ads before, so we are going to partner up with them again this holiday season. If you're looking for a gift to upgrade your daily care routine, right? Check out the brand new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. That's right. We got the new one here. So as you are used to with these trimmers, it is skin safe technology. We got the dual head system, waterproof. You can use it in the shower, USB-C, quick charge option, dual temp LED spotlight, and it's got a travel lock. So the kit that we're recommending you get is the 5.0 Ultra. Comes with the razor itself, comes with two of the combs, and then it also comes with the foil blade. You've got all options here that comes with it. Now check this thing out. It is built great, nice and sturdy, good weight to it. You can hear, you got some good RPMs in there. Check out the light for those of you on YouTube. That's right. You got two different brightnesses on there that you have. The other reason we love Manscaped is that they are part of the Testicular Cancer Society, right? They save balls. They're all about helping men with their daily grooming routines, as well as what they're going through life. So we appreciate them and everything they do. Check it out. Again, Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Link in the description. Check it out. Link in the description. Let them know that you came to them through London is Blue so that they can continue a partnership with us. Check them out.
All right, Sam. So I think we just need to prepare the people that things like strengths of a strong Dyche side, he finds a way, regardless of who his complements of players are, to be a very hard-nosed team, a very tall team, and a team that likes to have fun on set pieces. So I would assume that you're going to tell us all the horrible things in this strength section that align with that being some truisms of this Everton side.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first point I would like to make is something I've emphasized a little bit in the introduction, but I think has to be paid particular attention to after what happened in the last game. It's the fact that they're physically extremely good. They're brutes. I mean, in terms of coming up against a side that fights tooth and nail in the middle third and the defensive third, for every single loose ball, every single opportunity to take the ball away from you, they will do that. um, Extremely well drilled in terms of being aggressive. Even when they're pressuring you, they do it indirectly. So they're constantly, you know, um, the energy that they save from trying to press you in the attacking third, they apply slightly lower down the pitch. So even when your passing options don't have the ball, they will try and press you before your passer can try and get the ball to them. So there's always a little bit of anxiety saying, should I pass here because he's going to be closed down? He's going to be chased after. And it's the kind of anxiety that we saw against Manchester United, which was surprising because we played out very well against the Brighton press, which I feel was far more organized. But it was surprising to see United press with that kind of ferocity and pushing their fullbacks up very, very high, which they usually don't do. But they did it very well. And I think if that doubt creeps in, especially when you're trying to progress in the middle third and we lose the ball, then it's going to be a major, major issue. It's going to be tough. And obviously, you're not going to bet against us trying to figure out a way for Nico Jackson to score headers or something against a pretty good side in the air. So it's definitely going to be a physical contest. I think, especially with how we figured out gas tank wise against Manchester United, it is worrying me. So I would say that's the number one strength we need to be very, very careful about. The second is their box defense. Aerially, like I mentioned, very strong in defense. They've got Tarkowski, Branthwaite, and Onana all managing 65% plus aerial duel success in the air. So Onana's not there, but that centre back duo is very accomplished in the air. So it's going to be tough to do something against set pieces. They've only conceded 3 goals from corners and set pieces this season. They've gone on to score 7. So they're very dangerous in both ends of the pitch. And they're also very good at nullifying shots from opponent teams. So the non-penalty expected goals conceded is 4th best in the season, even though they've conceded quite a lot. But in terms of minimizing how many shots they're giving away and what the quality of those shots is, it's pretty great. I think their non-penalty xG per shot is 0.10, which is second best in the league. So it's also tough to take quality shots against them purely by virtue of the fact that once they go back, it's usually like against 8 men, 9 men in a very crowded area that you're trying to shoot against. So not going to yield high quality opportunities. The third I would say is that despite quite an underperformance on their output, they are threatening. I think their numbers are misleading. So their 14.5 shots per game is higher than what we manage with 13. And they've also created 36 big chances in the Premier League. That's one less than Arsenal with a game in hand that they're going to play, that they just kicked off now, basically 2 minutes ago. So it'll be interesting to see how that tally goes up against Newcastle. And they've hit the woodwork 8 times, which is joint second with us. So they could easily have had more, which is a story that I can tell you about my club as well. But they've underperformed there and arguably should have scored more. And the fourth I would like to emphasize is that they are fast starters. They've scored 1/3 of their goals. The 5 goals out of 15 have come in the first 15 minutes of games. So you want to weather an early storm. You want to basically, try and play out that early blitzkrieg that they're trying to go and put on you and try to slow it down. And hopefully then once you've settled down, once their press has sort of gone back and figured out that they can't get the best of you, maybe then it's a good time to attack.
Yeah, when you think about it too, it's almost as if people may be downplaying this Everton side because of where they're at in the table right now, forgetting about the points deduction and not maybe looking at the recent form. Because if you think about it, at the beginning of the season, they did have those 3 losses in a row to Fulham, Villa, and Wolves. But the last 5 matches have 3 wins, and I would say one in particular is a pretty high quality one against West Ham, who've played pretty consistent football this season. The draw against Brighton is nothing to look by and say that isn't an achievement for this Everton side. And then, showing that they can score and come back in the win against Crystal Palace too. So I do think they are a better side than their position in the table and their points would tell you. But I will say that as much as there are plenty of strengths, there are also areas where the things that Chelsea supporters complain about, like lack of finishing or lack of clinical finishing, is maybe nowhere near being a strength of this side. And maybe they lack some of the same, I don't know, ability to see games out at times that we have seen from Chelsea too. So it's almost like there's some mirror image elements, or the things, it's a grass is greener type of situation. Like we complain about our finishing, their finishing is really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head. I think they had a 10-point plan for improving finishing, but the Premier League took it away, and they're just
Oh my
trying to
gosh.
figure out how to. You got there a little late. I expected you to have like a quicker reaction time, but unfortunately, Rob Sanchez beating you there. But we shall give you another
Wow.
opportunity to make amends later on. But I would say that yeah, they've been dreadful at finishing. That's the word. Maybe abysmal if you want to go a tier deeper. But the goal conversion is 7%, which is yeah. Make of that what you will. Like I confused that top scorer. I thought it was Calvert Lewin, but like you correctly pointed out, it's Decore with 4. So it's actually a attacking midfielder who's and actually a central midfielder who's the top scorer. Calvert-Lewin has 3, Mikolenko, the left back, has 2, and no one else in the side has more than 1. They're also tied second for heaviest underperformance on non-penalty expected goals, which is not around, but minus 5.9 goals. So they arguably should have had 6 more goals than their finishing sort of suggests they actually should have been. So it's been a massive underperformance from them. We also figure very heavily on that table. I think we are just 2 spots behind at 3.9 or 4. So yeah, it's been like you mentioned a problem for both teams that's holding them back. The second is that they're very poor at holding on to leads, and they're also poor, ironically, at clawing back deficits. Deficits, sorry. So when they've gone one up, they've only scored 2 goals and they've conceded 5. And when they've gone one down, they've scored 1 goal and conceded 4. And when the deficit in the scoreline is more than 1, they've scored 1 and they've conceded 3. So it's interesting that, they, for all the strength and industry we talk about, maybe a little bit of resilience is lacking. Maybe they don't know what to do when they go one up and don't know what to do when they go one down. Is it, do we commit? Do we sit back? Do we try to bide our time? I think there's a little bit of uncertainty there. I will have to watch more games to figure out what exactly there is. But with games coming so thick and fast, I only had time to watch like 3 before I could come to that. But the numbers basically say this. So uh, I don't think that's a bad thing for us. We have done plenty of both. Hopefully, we will go one up and enjoy the privileges there. So I would highlight that as the second point to watch out for. The third I would say is tactical. They can be guilty of overcommitting their midfield into the box. So because you're relying on your central midfielders to constantly run from deep and try to win those second balls and try to basically provide support for your lone forward. What does happen is that in those moments after they lose the ball, there's gap to exploit, both out wide and in the center. And the centre backs aren't really used to a style of football where they're holding a high line for a long time because we've mentioned their average possession is 40.7%. So a lot of the times their centre backs don't even get close to the halfway line. It's basically slowly jogging back. And if that happens, if they try to go long and they commit too much, there's going to be an extreme amount of gap between those two lines. And that's the moment that you should try and exploit. The downside being is, Manchester United also were expected to play the same way, and we ended up not exploiting it. And B, we ended up on one of those transitions gifting the ball straight back to United, who went on to score their first goal. So we have to be careful. It can backfire spectacularly, but it works. It's something that Everton have been guilty of. One of their goals when they were one man down against Liverpool happened that way, where Salah was able to break away from an Everton corner, and it was a 2v1 against their last man. And essentially, they basically sealed the game off that way. So that's something to watch tactically. And yeah, I was excited about the fourth point until I figured out that he's not going to be starting at right back. It looks like Seamus Coleman is playing tonight against Newcastle at right back. We don't know if he's going to continue there or if he's just basically been moved inside for some reason. I have no idea. But Ashley Young is also starting this game. But if he does start at right back, I think there is an opportunity to exploit him there. He's got a red card also for 2 yellows. age is definitely showing. For all the experience that he has, he's still a very dangerous crosser into the box. But in terms of defending, in terms of being compact 1v1, when you isolate him away from a compact system, I think you can get at him. I will also say the same for Mikolenko. He's improved in terms of, like, yes, scoring goals, but you can give him problems. There are opportunities to exploit. We don't know who's going to be playing on the right hand side, probably Raheem Sterling. But even if you put somebody like a Noni Madueke there in the latter stages of the game, I think that could be a very good switch to make against Mikolenko, especially if we are 1-0 up and they're pushing forwards, then maybe there's something to be exploited there. So those are the four weaknesses. Hopefully it'll be Ashley Young at fullback. Fingers crossed. But yeah, should be enough to take care of business. So I'm keeping my fingers, toes, small intestine, large intestine crossed and hope for the best.
Yeah, you might need to tie those intestines in a knot to get the luck that we're looking for in this match. But we're going to take the last break, and then we come back. We're going to talk about how Chelsea, Pochettino, and the players are going to need to get at this one to try to rebound after the United result. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. All right, Sam, so no sugarcoating it. We didn't do it on the match review. We won't do it here on the preview for the Everton match. But Poch and the players have a big duty ahead of them in this match. Not the duty that they left at Old Trafford, but the need to showcase to the Chelsea supporters that they are going to go out and commit themselves for the full 90 minutes to accomplish what's required and to walk away with 3 points. And I mean, I think you nailed it earlier when you mentioned that we just looked to be a tired lot and not up for it at the level that United were. It was more of a will than skill type of match between the two sides, and United willed themselves into a result where Chelsea did not. And Chelsea need to showcase the will and skill in this match over the weekend. So, I mean, do you think the extra day of preparation might give an ability for the side to seem a little fresher? And this is considering the fact that, Chelsea will have this match, and then we actually get our longest break between this match and the Sheffield United match that we'll have throughout the end of the year, because we then play the 19th, the 24th, the 27th, the 30th. So they're all back to back after this. This is the last week effectively break between playing. You have to think that extra day might help and might give the team the opportunity to refresh, but I don't know. Where are you at with that?
I did not want to say anything about this yesterday because people tend to be extremely sensitive post defeats. So I was worried that there would be an extreme amount of backlash. But talking privately, I would definitely say that fatigue, irrespective of how tangible it is to people outside the club, because we don't have data to back it up, it is a very real thing. And I would want to highlight these points, and absolutely it's always up for debate. So feel free to say no, it doesn't make any sense. But I would say if you look at multiple points about Enzo Fernandez, Moses Caicedo having to travel to South America twice for 2 international breaks back to back, come back, start playing again. Enzo Fernandez, who's looked extremely fatigued until his 2 goals basically, I think, put a little bit of veneer over how it was going for him. But his touches, his influence has waned a little bit, and it does look like he is fatigued. And he's had a roller coaster month, a few months, I would say, where he's traveling. He's had a baby in the family, a lot of stuff going on. So I would say that has happened. From a collective standpoint, we had grueling matches against Manchester City, against Tottenham, against Arsenal, where we put in a lot of exertion. And like Pochettino pointed out, we played one half against Brighton with only 10 men, and most of them started the game a couple of days later. And this was something that McTominay said post match. He said Eric Ten Hag actually made us do lighter training sessions in the middle of the week, so we were fresher for this fixture. And they had one extra day to recover. So if you take those 4 or 5 points together, I think there is every chance that you look at that performance and maybe empathize a little bit in terms of what went wrong. I would say if one or two players get it wrong, you can definitely say yes, it was an individual thing. Maybe tactics weren't right. For example, I will blame Poch for putting Cucurella on the right against Alejandro Garnacho. Cucurella did well, but you want your players to be in the right positions. So, again, a question mark over Badiashile after his performance. Why was he dropped to the bench? Was he injured? Was he being conserved? I will have different reactions based on what he did with Benoit Badiashile, but um, away from that, if 10 players, 11 players together show lack of desire, lack of intent, if they're dropping off their markers, if people are not showing during build up, especially after you played so well under pressure from Brighton with one man less, makes you think, why is it not happened 3 days later? And I think the only solution that I can come up with is lots of fatigue. And I think that's what worries me. We're going with this fatigue, which is only going to be, like you said, an accumulating factor. We also need to highlight that central midfielders right now, Enzo and Caicedo, have zero backups. There's no Ugochukwu, there's no Lavia, Gallagher was suspended, no Chukwuemeka. So four central midfielders who basically could have helped out, not there in the side. So even if you wanted to take them out, wanted to rest them, rotate them, couldn't do it. And that's again going to be a question against Everton because we don't expect Romeo Lavia to start. We don't know if Oguchukwu is going to be there or if he's going to start. So who answers those questions and what happens if this trend continues? It's against a very, very physical side that is known for being intense. I think that's going to be the big question. The other games that I see when we have more of the ball, um, maybe we are able to play smartly. But yeah, overall, that's the question I'm asking myself, especially when we're playing a brand of high octane football. Where is it going to go? So big questions there. And I am worried. I'm not going to lie. I'm very, very worried.
Yeah, I know that you say that the stats aren't necessarily readily available or at a finger's touch from being able to prove out the fatigue point, but maybe we could kind of align it to the fact that in general, and I will say something about myself and what I've read about, and you can disagree, but when I am tired or I've been working extremely hard and maybe haven't gotten enough rest, I, don't always make not necessarily a terrible decision, but maybe it takes me a little longer to make a decision, or I can feel that mental fatigue setting in. And maybe that was evidenced in things like some of Sanchez's passes out of the back that were a little rough, some of the passing lanes we were trying to create that really weren't coming off, and we kept on trying even though it wasn't working. And so I think there are maybe things that we can point to that are at least, anecdotally are connected to this idea that the team is fatigued and there is potentially a lack of appropriate replacement for the individual or the up next individual, because we've asked the question about Thiago Silva, who, along with Robert Sanchez, are the only two players on Chelsea's side who have started and played in every one of the Premier League matches that Chelsea have had this season. I mean, when you look at it after that, the next closest in terms of minutes is Raheem Sterling at 12:30 and then Enzo Fernandez at 11:66. I mean, we have players like Reece James who haven't even cleared 400 Premier League minutes this season. And so, I mean, there are questions about, hey, could you have started someone like Reece James versus potentially allowing them to come in on the second half to fix or correct a problem? It does feel like the extra day of rest should hopefully be helpful. Hopefully the training methodology can be improved by Pochettino and his team to get the team in the right headspace to attack this match. And I think it is going to present some questions because, we know that James should be there available for the full 90. Gallagher will be returning into the side, and that may be, there's other players. Raheem Sterling didn't have his best game out as well. I mean, there's not too many changes he can make, as much as we like to lambast Pochettino, or he takes a lot of the brunt of the blame. I think maybe the thing that he can take the blame for is like, hey, if they're fatigued due to a training perspective, that is something he owns and something he can try to help correct between now and kickoff.
Absolutely. Again, if you look at the last game, I was on tenterhooks. I'm not going to lie. I was also livid in the middle of the game saying, what in the world is happening? Because at that moment, you just look at what's unfolding, and obviously subtext and context does not come to mind. But you looked at the bench, and there was Leo Castelline and Alex Matos. Those were the central midfield options. And then you start to figure out, okay, he doesn't have any options. If he wanted to bring on somebody, Gallagher, for all he's done, all the good work he's done, stupid red card, he should have been there to provide some kind of reinforcement. And we lacked that. We absolutely missed it desperately. And yes, players will return, and Poch will have better headaches in terms of who to drop. But right now, like you said, I think when he's looking at options, now there are certain question marks coming to his head saying, do I drop Raheem Sterling? Do I drop Nico Jackson because he missed two big chances? And then he gave away also a crucial intervention which led to the first goal. So is there a chance now to give Breuer the start and say, push Jackson, push me to select you? I think those are the questions he has to figure out now in the middle of a cramped run, and hopefully utilize the bare bones of the squad that we have left, not injured. And as in when the other guys come in, and Kunku, Lavia, hopefully, I think then you start making the more strategic decisions in terms of reintegration and giving them minutes.
Yeah, definitely things to consider. Are there other... I mean, the question around the defense would be an interesting one. It's just been such a slide back from being one of the best defenses in the league to now being 11th best overall. I mean, that could be personnel, could be individual mistakes, could be the fatigue that we talked about. I mean, is there thoughts around a different setup that you're hoping or potentially expecting to see in this match to try to resolve that? Because maybe, Chelsea have found a way to score. I mean, it's not like we were going through most of our matches with an inability to score, which is solving one of our problems. But at the same token, we sacrificed the inability to score for conceding a boatload of goals. So what's your thoughts on how we try to maybe calibrate that heading into this match?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will not have heard of this stat, but it won't surprise them either. But we've conceded half of the goals that we've conceded in the Premier League in our last 4 games. And that's saying something. We were, like you mentioned, the fourth best defense up until the run started, the notorious run started. And we slid from that position to 11th in the league, which is quite drastic. And, you know, attacks win you games and defenses win you titles. So if you're going to be open ended, if you're going to pursue a strategy which gives you goals, well and good, but balance is absolutely crucial. And for all that I've said about, the defense, I will give Pochettino credit because last season we were we were in the trenches in terms of even generating expected goals and in terms of getting big chances. It was absolutely, you know, I don't know half the words. I looked at the table every single day thinking relegation could happen because he just can't score. I think we were 78th out of 90 clubs in Europe's top five leagues for scoring goals, and it was just bad. We couldn't even outperform the worst clubs in the worst positions in the top five leagues. He's completely changed that. And if you look at the XG generated, we are third in the table, but that's also distorted by the fact that we've got 5 penalties. If you look at non-penalty expected goals, we are sixth, seventh, and we are not too far off from the top. And that was something that we couldn't envision last season. So I think strides have been made, but the style resembles for me more Lampard ball than something more controlled and nuanced. And that's okay because he's still trying to figure out what the strengths are of this team. Clearly, transition, breaking into space, making use of quick attacks definitely works. But he also has to balance that with spells of the game where you keep the ball, where you're controlled, where you're not breaking and basically over fatiguing your players with anaerobic endurance and testing their limits. And I think that's the balance that he has to explore and perfect and tweak over the rest of his tenure, over the end of the season. And I think that's going to be his main goal. He's done one thing right. Now he has to figure out how to put a very good defense and a very good attack together. And I think when we do that, then performance is stabilized. But it's not going to be easy, especially in the middle of this run with the fatigue that we have. not going to be easy, but hopefully we'll pick up points. And considering the next 6 games, 7 games are slightly easier on the scale, hopefully we'll be able to make amends and find ourselves in a respectable position.
So, with all that said and in mind, what do you project the lineup will be?
Oh, that's tough. I don't know if he's actually tempted by rotation. I don't know. I think it will weigh heavily on his mind, but I think Badia Shield 100% comes in. Reece James, of course, we both expected him to start. I forgot he was available and I left him out, and he was actually left out. So I got my lineup right. Haha, damn. But I expect him to start at right back. Expect Badia Shield to start. I think Disasi might drop out if Silva finally gets a rest. I don't know, but at 39, surely that's going to be a consideration at this point in time to figure out if we do that. Midfield, if we had some option, and if the data is correct, I would genuinely consider giving Enzo a rest. But considering we don't have a like for like, he has to play at least 60 minutes, and hopefully we'll have some breathing space to bring him in. I think people know that I've supported Jackson through a very bad patch, and I will continue to do so. I think there's a good player in there. I think with strikers, you have to be patient, and confidence is a huge thing. But I will continue to definitely claim that he's the ideal guy to lead our line. He definitely has to start for me, and I've got a lot of flack for saying it, but my decision definitely, in my humble opinion, should be start with him until you use him like a bar of soap and you leave like nothing in the tank. He has to get as many games as possible between now and the summer to try and get that nervousness out, to try and get tired of failing and tired of not finding the net. And when that floodgate opens, hopefully it'll bring a lot of goals. So I think he starts. But Raheem Sterling is a question mark for me. I don't think he's been good enough. I think in terms of helping us read the press, in terms of being very good in the attacking third, yes, very good. But some of his decision making, some of the things that he's done out of possession, not tracking back, leaving his full back a little vulnerable. I think those things are definitely questions. But again, who do you bring in? Palmer's shifted center in Gallagher's absence. So do you go Mudrik? Do you do Mudrik over Sterling? Do you do Madueke over Sterling? Matson hasn't got a lot of game time as a starter. Lots of questions. So I think by virtue, Sterling starts, but wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of a mix-up after a bad performance and Madueke starts or somebody else. But yeah, I think he just brings two changes. In short, Badia Shield in, and I'm going for maybe Sterling out. What about you?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I just don't see him messing around with the lineup too much. I think seems to value consistency, and whether or not you agree with that consistency or agree that he's selecting the right players, I mean, that's a different conversation. But I think it makes, look, unless Sanchez was injured in some capacity that we're unaware of, and we did see Petrovic having pretty extensive warm-up during the match and the second half, I would expect that he starts, though I wouldn't be surprised maybe if Petrovic gets a cup game here with the Newcastle match coming up. I think you have to at least try to see him once, knowing that, you have to keep all of your options open, particularly if some of the decision-making continues to be erratic when playing out of the back from Sanchez. But I think he'll not twist at this moment. He's going to stick with. And then I think it's James. I would hope for Badiashile and Disasi along with Levi Colwell as the back four. I think that's the grouping. And then I think it reverts to the Caicedo, Enzo, Gallagher midfield with the Palmer, Jackson, and Sterling lineup. And again, whether or not you agree, I mean, if you're just looking at who has contributed the most goals for Chelsea this season, I mean, that is your top three right there. And I know Cole Palmer's is a little bit improved by the fact that he has converted 4 penalties. And so if you pull those out, it does put him below someone like Mykhailo Mudryk. I think you just, Mudryk was more off of the shot in this last match than I thought he would be. I think, he got into some good spaces again. I think maybe he's more of change of pace potentially. If we're getting in a situation where we're not finding space in this match, you throw him on in the last 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, give him an opportunity to run at a defender who might already be on a yellow card and force a bad decision. I think Nico Jackson probably had 2 opportunities in the last match where if he pulled the trigger a little bit sooner, could have walked away with another goal, another celebration, pounding on the club badge, but he didn't do that. And so I think it's about trying to see if we can continue to get him in a space and in a place to be a contributor. But I think then you do have to look at, earlier subs potentially, depending upon how the match is going. Hopefully we're not chasing it. Hopefully we are well ahead of it. And you do get an opportunity to give maybe a little bit more rest in this match with some subs at the 70th minute mark or 75-minute mark and not have to wait until the very tail end of the match to try to impact it. But yeah, I think that's my lineup for this match.
Yeah, but interestingly, Dan, for the second podcast running, I've forgotten that our captain is back. Our captain, vice captain Gallagher is back. So my lineup definitely didn't have him. So I would change my lineup, and I hope that he's not sat out for some reason. But I do think you're absolutely spot on. I think Badiashile is one of those changes. Then Gallagher obviously comes in, and like you mentioned, something very very important. Mudryk, I think, is improving slowly, but there are some aspects of his play that were very rough last season that he's improving on in terms of just how he's assessing where he needs to be, where he needs to drive. There's a tendency now of not just using the touchline, but to also drive inwards, which I think he
Yes.
can be absolutely devastating at. That's something that he's cultivating slowly. I think he's finding confidence to say, if I go on the fullback's wrong side, if I try and drive towards the heart of the midfield and the defense, I think that's where the joy comes from. And he had a very good shot, which just went a little bit wide. He arguably should have also gotten an assist, but he messed up just his last action. But those are promising signs. So I'm just taking those and hopefully he also needs to start. I would say the same thing about Jackson that I would about Mudryk. Both need to start. Both need to scrub that rust off. Polish, polish, polish until you find the final product. So, very good point there. I think both of them need to get game time, and I don't mind if Mudryk and Palmer start. I'll go out and say that I don't mind it. Like you said, Raheem Sterling figures in the top 5 appearance makers. Challenge him. Let's see how he reacts. Let's see how he reacts to being dropped. Give him also simultaneously a little bit of a breather, but also challenge him to do better because we know what Raheem Sterling is capable of. And give Mudryk the time. Give him the chance to show what he is, and hopefully it all comes together. But yeah, nervous about this one, Dan. Very, very nervous. If I could ask you, what is your prediction for the game?
Oh, I think it's a 1-0 win. That I can't project more than that until I showcase a little bit more regular or consistency with our performances. I'm just going to go very, very basic 1-0 win. Who knows? Maybe even it's a 1-0 win with a Palmer penalty. Like that would be the level of chaos and craziness that this team could muster in the moment. But that's where I'm going to go. What about you?
Yeah, I wish you wouldn't have asked me that because people know I'm very optimistic, but I think this one we struggle with. I think we go 1-1 draw. I can even see a 1-0 defeat. It's tough. I think with everything taken into account, I would want to be as neutral as possible, but a win would be a very, very pleasant surprise for me. It's a tough side. I think it's tougher than people think, and I hope I'm for once, not once, for a multiple occasions. I hope I'm absolutely wrong and we go on to smash them. But I think it'll be a tough, very, very tight, compact game where we come up against the kind of issues that we did against Nottingham Forest and West Ham. And if we don't circumnavigate those properly, yeah, it's going to be a long, long afternoon. Just like I mentioned, United had the same finishing problems, and then McTominay just became Pele. And teams tend to do that against us. They tend to take the opportunity, and we just shouldn't give them the kind of leniency that we did. Even though we played like absolute garbage, we missed 5 big chances out of the 5 that we created against United. So I hope we don't do that again. but I think chances will be few and far between. I'm looking at the stats right now, Dan, and they're outshooting Newcastle. Um, they're basically doing very well. So it's still goalless, but Newcastle look like they're struggling against Everton. So despite having only 35% of the ball.
And Everton have manufactured one big chance to 0 big chances from Newcastle and 1 big chance miss. So hopefully their poor clinical form continues into this match and you get proven absolutely wrong, because Chelsea have done the business and manufactured the result they needed to restore a little bit of optimism within the Chelsea community. But that's going to do it for this episode, because we want to get you on to hopefully enjoying the rest of your day wherever you are. We appreciate you tuning in. Please make sure to leave 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you can, subscribe to our wonderful free newsletter written by Sam. You can also subscribe and get notified by hitting the bell icon on YouTube. Leave a comment there too. We love interacting with people there. And you can also join our wonderful Discord community to get stuck in on the conversation. That's going to do it for this one. So until next time, Chelsea fans, hopefully we're coming back and talking to you about a win against Everton. You know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.